On this episode of Still Loading, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, it is something that's hot off the presses. I don't normally cover things that are this contemporary. Now, when I started this show, I always thought, like, okay, I'm not going to do just retro. I want to do modern and kind of do a little bit of everything. But as time has gone on, I do almost all retro. And so I do want to kind of break the mold from that at least a little bit and talk about something that came out within this year. I actually, last year I did do Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So I do some contemporary stuff. But in any case, that was a tangent. We are here talking today about the newly released the Super Mario Brothers movie, and making his triumphant return to a full-length episode is my co-host with the Mo-host from the Captain N series, Dexter Morrill. Dexter, how are you doing, my friend?
Thank you. I'm doing fine. No, please sit down. Stop clapping. Yeah, I'm excited.
I am excited too, dude. We've been talking about it off mic, but besides video games, one of your other passions is animation, and this combines all of that. And you have been beyond hyped about this movie for a while now. So, and I want to say this off the top, listeners. We will be putting up a spoiler wall, so don't worry. We are going to be giving our honest opinions first without having to go through any of the spoiler stuff just yet. And we'll give some general broad strokes about our thoughts on the movie, and then we'll go into spoilers. So, Dexter, I wanted to hear from you first, though. What your hype leading up to the movie? What was your expectations going into this before you actually watched it?
Oh, man. When I found out about it, I was extremely ecstatic. Ever since, seeing the original, I think everybody's had this story, seeing the original in the 90s and kind of having that little bit of letdown. I think a lot of folks our age, maybe a little older, had that moment of realizing that you could watch a movie that was disappointing. I think some people had that experience. I remember being very I think I like this movie with the original 90s movie, but as I got older, realizing like I like it for it being bad. I like it for its novelty, but it's not a Mario movie. Like it's not. It's just not. And I still own it. I still love it for what it is, but it's just not a Mario movie. So knowing that Nintendo 30 years later is willing to dip their toe back in, I was really excited. And then they announced that Illumination was going to be the studio to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch gears to cautiously optimistic. Because I do, I enjoyed the original Despicable Me. I'm not really a big Illumination fan, but I know that they are competent in their animation, give or take the quality of the story and the jokes and all of that stuff. So I was like, well, we'll see. And then seeing how much Nintendo was involved, the more that they talked about it and the more that it sounded like Miyamoto was breathing on their necks as they worked, as he does with a lot of the games he works on, gave me a little more confidence. And then obviously it was a direct, I think, when they announced like the casting and everything.
Yes, I think so.
I remember being shocked at how much the internet blew up with the announcement of Chris Pratt, because I was like, really? But I wasn't angry. I didn't I didn't see red, no pun intended, when Chris Pratt I was like, really? Oh, okay. Well, that should be fine. But like, and then when I went onto Twitter after watching it, I was like, oh no, it's on fire here.
Well, let's real quick run down the cast list, at least for the primary characters, for the main characters. You have Chris Pratt as Mario. You have Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach. You have Charlie Day as Luigi. Jack Black as Bowser. You have Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. You have Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong. Sebastian Maniscalco, if I'm saying his last name correctly, as Spike, which is a perfect casting choice, IMO. And then
Yes,
Kevin Michael Richardson as Kamek, the sorceress for King Koopa,
the
and
Magic Koopa.
the Magic Koopa. Yeah, he. So that's the cast, and I saw the same thing when Chris Pratt was announced. The amount of vitriol was shocking. I was really not expecting everyone to be so mad about it. Uh, and I think a lot of it stems from he's been in everything lately. It's basically people are tired of seeing Chris Pratt in everything. And on top of that, people there's always ongoing discourse, justifiably so, about why are you casting different people who didn't originally voice the characters. What is it, like in the Transformers movies, or no, maybe not Transformers, but you can think of almost any uh adaptation of a popular TV show to a movie, and then they don't cast the original voice actor in the new movie. And so I think there was a whole bunch of stuff working against him. You look at this year, he's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is coming out later this year. He was also announced as the voice of Garfield. He isn't, he's in a lot of those Marvel movies. He's in the Jurassic World movies. He's in the Lego movies. He's just in all of these gigantic blockbuster films. And I think people were just kind of tired of him. Whether that's his fault or not, I don't. The guy's got to work. Like, I don't really care all that much, but I think the vitriol really came from a lot of that. That's my guess. I'm not going to speak for obviously the entire internet, but it. I think that's where it came from. But I'm with you, Dex. I really didn't have a strong opinion of it. I was like, oh, that's an odd choice. I don't necessarily hate it, but I also am not like, holy shit, what a great casting choice, Uh, and once we did finally hear it, what did you think? What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I thought it was exactly what. Well, actually, I'll give him credit. It was better than I was expecting, even though I had, like, I'm sure he'll be fine. Like, that was my expectation going in, and I have to say, other than, I think they started out right away. We'll go into spoilers later. I won't talk about that, like, actually specific moments, but I will say eventually, not long into the movie, he was Mario to me. Like, he didn't stick out to me at all. And yeah, I actually, I doubt you remember this, Josh, but I actually texted you not long after the announcement because I was starting to feel a little crazy, as some of us do when we spend a little too long on social media. Because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not that mad. Like, why is everybody so mad? I feel like I'm alone in this. And I remember texting you being like, "Are you cool with Chris Pratt?" Like, I think I dipped my toe in a little bit easier as far as like, "Hey, what'd you think of that?" And then kind of got into it from there because I was like, I feel like I'm alone on an island. I'm not like, I saw it for what it was, and what I still think it was is that they went for the safe choice for someone as iconic as Mario. They needed
Yeah.
a really, really, really safe choice. And like you said, Chris Pratt, not only is he in everything, he's the lead in everything. He's the leader of the Guardians of
Yes.
the Galaxy. He
He's a
was the
leader
leader
of
of the
Jurassic
Lego
World.
movie. Yeah, Jurassic World. Like, so that was my initial reaction, was like, oh, okay, him again, I get it. But it felt like I was seeing it through the business eye of like, this is the safest, smartest choice. He's going to be the least, well, what they probably thought was going to be the least controversial, because everyone's like, oh yeah, Chris Pratt, of course. It just seemed so obvious. But when everyone was like, and it looked like a dumpster fire on the internet, I was like, oh no. And so yeah, and you did help calm me down. I don't know if you remember having the conversation. You're like, yeah, I thought it was kind of weird too, but yeah, whatever.
No, and I think the thing is with his performance is like it's not very you don't when you're watching the movie, you're not constantly going, "Oh, that's Chris Pratt." You know,
Right.
you don't he doesn't stand out in like, I don't even mean that in a bad way, but like you forget that it's voiced by Chris Pratt, which is not the same I can say for Donkey Kong, where I love Seth Rogen, but you you can hear Seth Rogen. Like it's he didn't. I think the reason why, and justifiably so, people get so upset that the original voice actors don't get the credit they deserve, is because a lot of times when they cast the big name actor or a big name Hollywood star to do the voiceover work, not saying they're doing poorly, but you know there it is a slightly different skill set, and versus someone who has literally had years of practice doing VO work versus an on-screen actor who hasn't had as much experience with it, there is a big difference. And on top of that, um sometimes you can't ever not hear the actor, and that's the issue with Donkey Kong. Like you can only hear Seth Rogen. That I don't see Donkey Kong in that. I see Seth Rogen, just his voice coming out of Donkey Kong. I will say though, the argument in my opinion for Charles Martinet being the lead in this, I I love Charles Martinet. He's one of the sweetest, kindest people I've ever met. I met him at a convention one time. I paid for the autograph. I wouldn't say I really met, but you know, it was one of those types of deals. Very sweet, very kind. Really loved how kind he was to everyone. But his voice of Mario works for the games. It's the only voice I'd ever want to hear for the games. For a full movie, do you really want to hear him speaking that way for an entire movie? You know, like it
Right.
just,
Yeah.
I don't think the only way you could make that work is if you give Mario very little lines and then you have your main character as a silent protagonist at that point. And that makes your job significantly harder to pull off. So I don't have an issue with his. I'm not saying it was like the most inspired casting choice. I don't know who I would pick otherwise, but at the same time, it's nowhere near the worst thing. I think it's like you said, Dex. He's everywhere. He also is the big name. He's the safe name. He's like the name that if you don't want to offend anyone, you go with this one. And it's funny, by going with the safe choice offended a lot of people just because everyone's tired of hearing Chris Pratt. So I didn't have an issue with it. Everyone else I thought was fantastic. I think the standout performance by far is Jack Black as Bowser.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt it in the marketing and even in the after seeing the movie itself. I was very much taken back to the days of Disney's Aladdin in the 90s, where they marketed the heck out of that movie using Robin Williams as the
Yeah,
genie. Like that was the selling point. And it was the first animated movie, I'm pretty sure, that I can think of that actually made their character look obviously like a caricature of the voice actor. And they really leaned into that. Like, not only is it the voice, but this character looks like Robin Williams. And they definitely leaned into Bowser a lot in the trailers and the commercials. I mean, the very first trailer they showed was the big scene that how the movie starts. But even watching the movie, seeing Bowser's performance, I'm I would bet a lot of money that they used footage of Jack recording in the studio of like his movements and the way his mouth moves and the way he gesticulates and it very much felt when I was watching the movie like watching behind the scenes of Aladdin, how they animated around Robin Williams.
yeah. I could see that. I could see that. He really is just fantastic. I would say probably the least on the opposite end of the spectrum. I know everyone was like giving Chris Pratt shit for a long time, and this is not to say this performance is bad. It's not. None of the performances are bad. Everything is, for the most part, believable in my opinion. I did see in the notes you weren't a big fan of the voice of Cranky Kong. Like you thought that took it out of you. So and I'll let you kind of talk about that performance in just a moment. But I actually thought Anya Taylor Joy was just kind of like there, you know, like there wasn't anything really to it. It wasn't bad by any stretch. It wasn't like I watched it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what choice, like why did she make that choice? All the choices, like acting choices, and with both her voice and like her inflection were fine, but it just it was just there, I don't know. Did you get that same vibe off of her?
Yeah, well, I'm not as familiar with, like, I know Anya Taylor-Joy. I know the films that she's been in, and I've seen a couple. I mean, she's
She's a
been kind of
good
like Chris Pratt
actress.
lately.
She's a
Yeah,
fantastic
she's been in a lot
actress.
of stuff. I think I've seen her in Queen's Gambit, and I didn't
Yeah,
see
that's
the
kind
X
of
Men
that was like
movie
her
that she was
breakout
in.
role.
Right, and she was in one of those old Viking movies. Was it The Northman that she was in? I think she was in The Northman.
Yeah, she was in The Northman.
But when she was cast, I was like, okay, I can't, like, I see her face, but I can't imagine her voice. Her voice doesn't have a very, like, oh, that's Anya. Like, I don't, she doesn't have to me, a very recognizable voice. So when she was cast, I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, her performance was just the same thing. It was fine. It was like, okay, I wasn't really, I still can't really hear her voice.
I will say though, while I wasn't like while her performance, like we said, wasn't awful, just wasn't anything like blowing us away. It was just it got the job done. It was exactly what it needed to be. Um, the character of Peach in this, I thought was really fun. They let her be tough but not tomboyish. They let her be keep that sense of sternness but also be playful. Like it felt a lot more fleshed out than what you like, because if you're going by Peach off the games, it would just be this very timid character, and I'm glad they didn't stick with that, because that would have been a boring character to see in the movie.
Yeah, and I was actually I was expecting her to be kind of more regal and more, princessy, like more of the princess than the Peach thing, and like I just assumed that was going to be, and I don't necessarily mean that in a overly feminine kind of thing. I just mean that as like I, maybe I'm thinking of like Princess Zelda, like very regal, very, but she was very relatable, which I enjoyed. She felt like the toads were like pets rather than like her subject. You know what I mean? Like it was relatable that way.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. She, well, I think the fact that they at least they built that into her character, though, that the reason she's not too regal is because she isn't from that world. Like she showed up, she kind of popped there by accident as a kid and was taken in by the toads, and they made her their queen. So she never. It's not like she grew up in like a royalty setting. She's just kind of like, all right, I guess this is like I'm now your queen. Okay. I
Right.
do like
Yeah.
that though, because I really feel like that's the producers kind of setting up like, well, if this movie does well, there's our next movie. We can talk about the origins of Princess Peach or something like that. Like, how did she get to the Mushroom Kingdom? Because she's a human like Mario. Um, so I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of cool,
I'd be in line for the Princess Peach movie.
right? And actually, real quick, another shout out quick to Anya Taylor Joy. She's going to be in Furiosa next year, the sequel to Mad Max Fury Road. I
Oh,
am kind
nice.
of really excited for that because I loved Mad Max Fury Road, and if she's going to be in Furiosa, that she's playing Furiosa actually. So I'm kind of super excited. It's actually in post production right now already. So I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to that. But anyway, so she's pretty good as Peach. Like just like we said before, I'm not going to rehash it. Charlie Day was fine as Luigi as well. I would say his performance was also kind of in the same vein as Anya Taylor Joy's, where I didn't really like get much out of it, but he also had a lot less screen time than I was expecting.
Yeah, I'll want to talk about that more when we get into the movie. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I enjoyed the characterization that they used, though, even though it felt a little underutilized, like you were saying.
Now, we don't need to necessarily go through everyone's performance. I already kind of touched on Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I mean, you're actually pretty close then. If we kind of gloss over Donkey Kong, I think Keegan Michael Key as Toad is really fun. I can't hear Keegan Michael Key at all because his voice is so high in this, where it just you can't even tell it's him. But Toad is a really fun character in this. Uh, and I have one other character I want to shout out before I want to hear your you like I said you put in the notes that you weren't a big fan of Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong, or like it took you out of the movie. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that. But before I throw it over to you for that, got to shout out, and this is I don't consider this a, you know what? Yeah, this is not a spoiler. It could have been if I would have characterized it a little bit more. There is a Luma that you meet in the movie, like, from Super Mario Galaxy. And the voice of the Luma is Juliet Jelinek, which is the daughter of the co-director, Michael Jelinek. And it is fantastic. One of my favorite bit parts in the entire movie. If you have not seen this movie, in all honesty, I say this with very little hyperbole, it's kind of worth it for the Luma. I'm not gonna lie, I loved the Luma's performance. So yes, that's all I really had much to say. Like, Sebastian Maniscalco as Spike. What a great reference to Wrecking Crew and everything as Foreman Spike. He's fantastic. Is that I love that he just like busts Mario and Luigi's balls all the time, and he's just such a cruel boss to them. It's so funny. And then Kevin Michael Richardson is comic. Like there's not that much, or Kamek. There's not much to the role. It's kind of in the same vein as like what Charlie Day was as Luigi, where it's good, it's serviceable, but there's not much there for them to do with it. So first off, Dex, go off on Cranky Kong, and if there's any other things you want to highlight on other performances that I glossed over, feel free to go into it.
No, I will say that we did gloss over Donkey Kong, like you said, but there's not much to say. I actually was, I don't know if I'm like jaded for some reason, but that it felt like one of the more authentic performances from Seth Rogen, which is kind of funny because he admittedly in an interview was like, yeah, when they asked me to do this, I was like, I'm not doing a voice. You're just getting me. And so it sounded very like passive and like I'm phoning it in. But when I actually heard his performance, it felt like the most normal I've heard, like, because I've seen Monsters and Aliens and some of his other roles where he's kind of hamming it up. And I actually enjoyed his slightly more subdued version of Donkey Kong. Like the way he read his lines felt more authentic than his usual voiceover roles. So I was actually kind of impressed, um, which makes it all the more like of a bummer that Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong was such a strange. I don't know if it was directorial or if it was Fred's decision on the voice he chose to do for Cranky Kong, because out of all the group, out of the whole, like out of all the names that we've talked about, he seems like the most like he's a character actor. He's used to doing sketch comedy with different voices and all that stuff. He's got one of those careers where he can do that. And so for the
Mm-hmm.
voice he chose for Cranky Kong was really like generic. There was not really a real accent to it, or like there was nothing performative about it to me other than like it was different from his normal voice. Um, I neither got cranky nor Kong from from his performance. Like
I mean, I
because
got
I
a
was
little cranky
expecting,
vibes.
I suppose he was more like goofy, silly, smarmy Kong than cranky to me. I just was expecting, maybe I was expecting something more cliche of like, hey, listen here, Donkey Kong. Like I was expecting more of an older sounding or angry or gruff sounding, and his was like, hey, Donkey Kong, go fight Mario. Like it was just, it was weird. It stuck out to me and took me out of the movie.
See, it didn't really take me out of the movie at all. I thought his performance was fun, like it was just I do see what you're saying, how it's kind of just a generic voice for all intents and purposes. It's just kind of like I don't know. You could totally you've heard this same character in a bunch of other movies. So I totally see where you're coming from with that point. It just didn't take me out of the movie at all. Um, I don't really have much else to comment on it because I actually completely forgot that Cranky Kong was going to have such a presence in the movie, and so when it started happening, I'm like, oh, I forgot someone big was cast as him. I don't remember who it is at all. And then when the credits rolled, I went, "Oh, Fred Armisen. Okay, I could see that. I could see that." Yeah. So I didn't have any issues with it. But were there any other characters, any other performances you wanted to talk about before we kind of move on to some general broad strokes with what we liked about the pacing and the movie itself, or pacing, visuals, story, all that stuff, and just our broad strokes and opinions on the movie. So, is there anything left on the voice cast that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, last thing I'll just say is you could tell when the professional, like the people who do it for a living, VO characters showed up. They were all strong, even in like their small bit parts. They you could tell that they knew what they were doing with like some of those background characters. Like you would either recognize the voice or like just the way they delivered their lines were really solid. So I totally understood that side of the controversy with some of the celebrities being cast over professional voice actors, but it's it's just the fact of the matter that that's how sometimes they have to get tickets sold is through name recognition. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to
No,
what
it's
we said about Robin Williams as Genie, I mean, look what that did for Disney, and ever since then, that's just been kind of the way they do it. And I think, I do think that they, with their name recognition of Mario alone, they could have done it with professional VO. But I mean, that Mario fans are going to go see a Mario movie. You need to bring
mhm.
in people on the periphery that, oh, I like Chris Pratt. Oh, I like Anya Taylor-Joy. Oh, I like Jack Black. So that's what they were doing with that casting is like, okay, we've got the Mario people. Now it's time to pull in the people who, may not, but would for this particular actor or actress.
I don't see. It's weird. Is the whole discourse about should the original original voiceover artists, voice actors, be able to do the stuff in the final one? I actually don't. I'm torn because part of me thinks that you're right. Everyone, I don't. I think the fact that Mario alone is in it was enough to sell it without the big voice actors. I guess the only point of adding them is for the people, for the adults who have no kids who are on the fence, who are like, well, I liked Mario as a kid, but I might not go see it. That would be the only reason to get them into the theater. And I guess I don't know. I'm kind of torn because part of it is like, I don't think there's enough. And this is no insult to the original voice actors, but there's not enough in the original game to warrant using that specific style of voice. Like, especially like, imagine Toad. Imagine the original voice of Toad for an entire movie. Like, I don't maybe not the original from like the Mario Super Show, but from just even from the games, so the like it would be obnoxious. And I love Charles Martinet, but hearing "Wahoo, it's a me, let's go" like over and over and over again, or in that voice. I've seen interviews where Charles Martinet will speak in that voice. I talked about it in the Mario month where he did that whole interview as in the voice of Mario, and it's fine, but it's very gimmicky. I don't think that it would. I really don't think it could hold an entire movie, and that's once again no insult intended towards Charles Martinet. I think that voice works exactly like it is beyond perfect for the game. For an hour some odd, for a 92-minute movie, I think that could get grating very quickly. And I think it's a similar type of thing in a lot of the different for a lot of the different roles. Though, maybe Bowser, since all he does is just kind of go, "Roar," I don't, the original voice actor probably could have done the role of it anyway because he would just have to speak for this instead of just grunting. or something like that.
You got to think about the
So
emotional range for the acting too. Like, I'm sure he could do it, but it would be so weird to hear that voice doing like a serious monologue.
yeah, I guess. Oh, I mean, but at the same time, it's Jack Black that you got to do Bowser. Is there really a serious monologue from Jack Black
That's
as
true.
Bowser?
That's true. Well, I was thinking
I
more
mean,
about Mario, but yeah, the same for both.
oh, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. For this movie specifically, I don't have as strong of an opinion towards should the original voice actors have been in it or not. I'm fine with it either way. I do think in other projects it's absolutely stupid that they don't do it and they get just the big like if it's like a niche property, right? That I'm trying to think of a good example. Like I'm trying to like this is based off of absolutely nothing, but let's say there is a new He-Man movie that comes out, right? And an animated He-Man movie, and they start casting, like Chris Pratt as He-Man or some shit like that.
Don't bring that into the universe,
Don't
Josh.
put it out of the universe. I think that would be a silly thing because that's already so niche. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah.
there's certain properties that are niche enough that doesn't matter what names you attach to it, that movie is not going to do well with the general audience. So you need to appeal to the its core audience, and then you can also save money by not having to have expensive big name actors lend their voice to it. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place. But okay, let's move on to just kind of some broad strokes about the movie, just our thoughts and feelings on it. Dexter, I'll let you go last before we go to the spoiler wall, just because you really had like you did a lot of the work for this episode. The reason I say that, listeners, is a lot of times when I do episodes on specific movies, and my still bonding listeners will understand this as well, I watch the movie a lot. I will watch the movie one time through and take copious notes throughout the entire, or as many notes as I can, just to help me keep the plot in line and that kind of thing. Then I'll watch a behind the scenes documentary on the movie that I'm watching. For at least for still bonding. If it's for something that I can't find a documentary, I just do research. But then I'll do behind the scenes research on whatever movie that I'm watching, and then I'll watch it again the night before the recording session. This time, not taking any notes, no distractions, just kind of enjoying the movie as a movie. I couldn't really do that with this movie because it's still in theaters. Unless I want to spend another $15 to go see it again, which I did enjoy it. Like I wouldn't have been mad about seeing it again, but it's a lot harder to set aside time to go to a theater than just kind of plop in front of your computer and watch a movie type of thing. So I didn't have time to do my normal, like I didn't bring a notepad into the theater because I wanted to enjoy the movie that I was watching and not treat it like it's a crime scene to investigate. And as I do with my still bonding show. So I just kind of watched the movie and enjoyed it. And normally I would also like start writing down notes, but this past week has, and speaking of still bonding, I recorded like a 3 hour and 20-minute still bonding episode on Tuesday and then had to have it out 2 days later on Friday. So I would have, or like 3 days later on Friday, which means I only had 2 nights to edit the thing. So all the time that I would have dedicated to prep for this, I had to do other podcast related things. So Dexter, thank goodness for my buddy here, because he was kind enough to share with me a copious amount of notes from what he remembered from his watching of the movie. And so I'm that's why it's a very long-winded way of saying, like, that's why I wanted you to end, because I feel like you were more excited for this movie than I was, which is not to say I was not looking forward to it, but you were more excited for this movie than I was, and you did more of the work. So I want you to kind of have the final word before we go into before we go through the spoiler wall. So that was such a long-winded explanation. My apologies, listeners. So let's go into this. My broad strokes and kind of thoughts on the movie. Overall, incredibly fun flick. It's not going to be anything groundbreaking. It's not going to subvert any expectations, and it's also not going to exceed any expectations. I would say the the best way it really exceeded any of my expectations is the fact that it was just competent. It never felt like they didn't try to do anything crazy. And I saw this thing on Twitter. I thought it was a really good description where the reason this movie works is that it wasn't trying to turn a game into a movie. It was trying to turn a movie into a game. It was trying to make the movie give the viewer the same feeling, same elation of joy that a player gets when they play Mario. And you can kind of see that throughout this movie. There's training montages, and there's training montages. There are, some of the fight scenes, and just even some of the way they film some of the action set pieces is that they bring the camera on the side, and they make it more cinematic than a straight up 2D side scroller. But they put the camera on the side, and you can kind of see this cinematic playthrough of a really beautiful CG animated movie. It's really well done. So it gives you that game feel by making the camera kind of 2D-ish, but not quite. They make it a lot more not organic. I'm trying to think of the word, but a lot more engaging. That's not the word I wanted to say, but I think it still fits. It makes it a lot more engaging than just like the static 2D camera. So it's paced really well. There's a couple spots that go super fast and then super slow, but overall it's paced really well. The story is exactly what it needs to be, and it's just fun. It's a flat out fun movie. So yeah, that's kind of all I got to say, really, in some broad strokes. I'm planning on having this discussion continue on out between after you gave kind of yours, but I don't want to take up as I've already taken up enough time. So Dexter, your broad strokes and your thoughts on the movie in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I really liked it. I went with my brother and his kids, and we had a good time. My brother, he's got 4 kids. Three of them were old enough to go, so it was the group of us went. And same thing. I didn't go in with notes, but I went in with a semi photographic memory. um, to the point. Well, I will give the peek behind the curtain. I think both of us saw it a week ago today, so it's been several days. So these notes were super important, and I knew that I wanted to get it down before I forgot, because I knew we were going to record this at a later time. But I teach sequential art, I teach drawing, I teach animation, so I have, I'm supposed to be teaching students about composition and camera angles and color theory and all this stuff. So I'm looking at that when I'm watching movies now. It's a blessing and a curse. So that's how I'm able to remember movies that way. And so I knew by it, it took some time, but I knew by the end of the day, after seeing the movie, I saw it like a kind of a late matinee. And then, after dinner that night, I popped open my phone and I was just like, okay, I want to try to rewatch this movie in my brain. And I just kind of took notes. And sometimes I had to go back in and fill gaps of things I forgot. I
Mm-hmm.
think I sent you 2 or 3 versions of these notes of just kind of, oh yeah, I forgot that
Only two.
happened.
Only
And like,
two.
so that is, I don't think I would be able to remember all of this now a week later, but I knew I would need to. So I just kind of tried to relive the movie a little bit. And then just kind of threw in some thoughts I had on, since it has been a week, we kind of have a chance to discuss some of the discourse around it. But overall, in the moment, at the time, I was stoked. I had a smile on my face the entire time. I don't think there
Yeah.
was ever a moment where I was like, "Oh no, oh it's a fart joke." Like that never. I was worried that would happen,
Mm-hmm.
but it never did. And I was just thrilled. I think I welled up twice. I didn't cry, but I think I welled up 2 or 3 times. Like I said, I went with my brother. There's a big overarching theme about the power of brothers, and so
In the movie, yeah.
of course that got to me. Yeah. So, um, but just like with the games, I feel like anything more than what the movie gave us story wise would start to divide the audience. So I was really happy with what they gave us for this first movie. Do you mind if I go into my negatives and positives without doing any spoilers
No, no, by
here?
all means. I was going to say, real quick before you do it, you're just to touch on what you said about the story. The story feels like something straight out of one of the games. It doesn't feel like they tried to tell a brand new story or like flesh out a world in a specific way. It felt very much like a story out of one of the games, and I think it's one of the reasons why it works.
Yeah, it's crazy how much I feel like you can feel Miyamoto's fingerprints on this in that case. Like I feel like he was giving them direction as if they were making a game. I honestly feel like that was something that was happening in the process.
I
But
could see that.
on the on the other hand, I really also felt like the people who were making this grew up playing Mario, or at least were like huge Mario fans from the
Yeah.
different audio cues. There were certain sound effects. There were certain like the way the music was orchestrated. Certain like the move sets that Mario and Donkey Kong use. Um, the just everything like the clothes, everything felt like it was uh, a big love note to the franchise. So yeah, I couldn't have really asked for much more on that sense.
Well, and something that just in speaking of love notes to the franchise, this is not a spoiler because this was in the trailers, and in fact, it was used in the marketing. They used the Mario rap from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. In the advertising material, they showed it as a plumbing commercial for the Mario Brothers plumbing business, and it was done using like the music used for the commercial was the Mario Brothers rap. And what's crazy is you can actually call the number and you'll hear Charlie Day as Luigi answering the phone. It's a voicemail type of thing, but you can actually sign. I actually signed up for it. I actually hold on. Let me grab my phone. They sent me their quote unquote their business card, um, which is kind of amusing, and you can sign up for like to get like phone calls from them. You can text them 92955 Mario or go to smbplumbing.com and you can actually like look at uh they actually have like a full website with reviews from Foreman Spike on the website and stuff like that. Like the amount of detail for this marketing blitz was surprisingly in depth, and it's just really fun to see how much they genuinely cared. It's really apparent that whether you end up liking the movie or not, I do think one of the strongest praises I can give this movie is that the people who made it genuinely cared, and because they included so many references to not just the games but to the even the media surrounding the games, hence the Super Mario Brothers Super Show reference.
Yeah, definitely. That was actually what won me over because I really liked the first trailer they dropped showing Bowser, and I was like, "Oh, this is exciting! If the movie's like this, I'm going to be really happy." But I still had that kind of like, I hope we didn't see the only good part of this movie in this one trailer. But then when they dropped that the fake commercial using the Mario rap, I was like, they get it. They if this this has got to be I'm gonna love this. This is if they keep up with this like so I that fake commercial totally won me over and the marketing.
And I think the smartest thing about using that fake commercial and using the Super Mario Brothers Super Show theme song as the music for it was, let's say you're a huge fan of Mario, you grew up with the games. It's now it's fan service to you. You're like, oh shit, they get me, they understand it. Let's say you take that same thing and you put it to someone who doesn't know what the hell the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is, never saw it, never heard that song before in their life. That's just a funny joke. It's just funny to see, like it'd be so out of character for what they know Mario as that it would be humorous to see that full wrap, and the way it's done for a plumbing commercial, and that there's a whole plumbing website. So I think that the marketing was really smart because it works for as fan service and like really nostalgia bait for people our age, and for people younger than us it's just a funny joke. It's and not like a haha that's a good knock knock joke, but like a really funny, like goofy idea that only people who cared about it would actually try, you know?
Yeah, definitely. People can relate to the corny, small business kind of commercial too. Everyone's seen one of those really, um,
Exactly.
you know, poorly made commercials, so it hits on that level as well.
But so you mentioned a little bit ago before we kind of talked a little bit about that. You wanted to just give some of your positives and negatives. So go for it. What are some of your positives and negatives?
Yes, I think I'm going to start with the negatives because I like this movie. So we'll end on the positives. Um,
Hmm.
some of my negatives, like it was not a perfect movie. There were some things that could have been tweaked a little bit. Some of the things that stuck out to me were that sometimes the movie moved too fast, um, and we didn't get to enjoy some of the moments that were like, oh wow, look at that. Oh wait, come back. Things just kept moving. It didn't give us a
Hmm.
chance to really get invested either in the area or with what the characters were doing or talking about. Um, but on the flip side of that, like I think it was like 78 minutes long. Like it's not a very long movie. And we have a shortage of those these days. Like everybody is trying to make a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy this did not overstay its welcome. So the other thing was I put on here disappointing needle drops. So they felt the need, and I get it. One, it's Illumination. Two, they're trying to appeal to a broad audience. They dropped in some pop music. I will give them credit that it was
Yeah.
kind of like 80s pop music. So they were definitely going for like an 80s era aesthetic with some of the setting and everything. So I appreciate that there was at least that attention to it, but the some of those needle drops were really obvious and overdone. I think we've all seen a movie with "I Need a Hero" during a montage, and it was kind of funny from that sense. Like, oh gosh, they use this all the time. It's really obvious, but it also felt a little lazy. Um, the big
Hmm.
one that most people were bothered by was Take on Me by Aha showing up
Yeah.
because it didn't really make much sense other than like fun 80s song. I love that song. Don't get me wrong. I love Take on Me. But the big controversy with that was that they had actually scored a really awesome Donkey Kong Country like medley during that scene. And I guess somewhere along the line, the producers got cold feet and were like, grab a pop song and put it in there instead. And you can actually find it. They've got some of the soundtrack online. The scene they put online, what the actual song was supposed to be, and it's actually really good. It's got some little Donkey Kong Country music in there,
Mm.
which leads to my other one, which we already talked about, was Cranky Kong's performance was I felt was a little distracting. The other thing on here is kind of spoiler, so we'll get to that later. And I don't know how I feel about this now after writing it, but I put on here I hoped for a little bit more development with Bowser, and I think that was just me like I really liked Bowser and I wanted
Yeah.
more. I think is probably what that note came from. Um, and then as far as my positives, I loved the art direction. It was colorful. It wasn't afraid to be colorful and super saturated. Um, the character designs were adorable. I wanted to squeeze Mario's cheeks like one of those embarrassing aunts. Um, it was,
that's that's good job. Good job in that describing yourself, Dexter.
thank you. It was filled with super fun visual and audio Easter eggs, which I mean, we'll get into that later, but yeah, it was just like the rewatchability of that was excellent. And we can talk more about kind of that fan service. You know, it can be used poorly. I think it was used really well, and I think it was really genuine. The Easter eggs. It was exciting. It was nonstop. Like I said before, I think it was like a tight 80-minute long movie, really bite size and fun. Um, Great voice performance, or I put good to great voice performances. There was some solid stuff in there. There was some really good stuff in there. And then anything that was in Brooklyn, anything that took place in Brooklyn during the movie, I loved it. Thought it was great.
Just one comment on some of the things you brought up. The needle drops. I didn't have an issue with them. I didn't have an issue with any of them. I don't know why it took people out of the movie so bad for those, because I guess I'm just used to hearing those types of pop songs in movies, and they made the Mario music orchestral enough that it felt like, you know, you have the big sweeping orchestral stuff, and then you have the random pop songs for like montage scenes and whatnot. Like I don't know. It really didn't take anything away from the movie for me. I was You're not the only person to bring up their issues with those music choices either. So you're not alone. I actually think I'm in the minority on this, where I don't really have an issue with it. It didn't ruin any part. In fact, when the aha thing came on, I just found myself loving it. I guess it is a mild criticism where I'm just kind of like, I found myself singing the song and kind of paying attention to the song more than the movie. But that's really the most of it. And I will not lie, I will always love when a movie uses I Need a Hero. I don't know what that song does to it. That song does things to me, Dexter. I really like that song. It's one of those ones where it's kind of like because it drive, like, especially the rhythm and the melody drives so much, where like you hear that song and you just want to like run through a brick wall. Just like you just feel so motivated, like I gotta go do stuff now, I don't care what it is. So it kind of worked for me, because that's like the way Mario kind of, because if I remember correctly, this isn't a spoiler, but it, because I'm not going to say where it appears in the movie or in what context, but Mario is doing like this training sequence, this training montage, and it kind of fits for that for me, because that music would make me want to run through a wall. And uh, Mario, for all intents and purposes, has to run through a wall with this to get where he needs to be. Not to get physically, but like in the training type of thing, to get in the shape and the skill that he needs. I don't know, it fits. I don't have an issue with it.
Yes, my 12-year-old nephew was sitting next to me, and when aha came on, he turns and looks at me and he goes, "Uncle Dexter, this is the best movie ever."
You actually
So
also
he
had
loved it too.
you also had some notes about your theater experience. I think that's a good way to kind of end this first half of the episode on, is to talk about our theater experience before we put up the spoiler wall. My theater experience was kind of boring in a sense. I went with my wife. We went in. We paid way too much money for pretzel bites and the crappy cheese dip that comes with it, and dipped some pretzels and some cheese, and we finished it all before the movie even started, and then we watched the whole movie and had a great time. That was like there. Oh, it was kind of cool that everyone applauded at the end of the movie. Like there was an actual like the whole audience was like applauding and cheering at the end of it. It's one of the I don't get to experience that often in theaters, and it was really cool to see. It was one of the many reasons why I think going to a theater is still so fun and important, because of that communal experience. It was really fun. I no lie, there's a whole group of kids there. It's funny. I thought when I started this story, I was like, I don't really have much to say, and now things are starting to come back to me. There's a whole group of friends there who were dressed up. Like there was a girl dressed up as Princess Peach, another dressed up as Mario or Luigi, and they, as my wife and I were leaving, I saw them asking one of the employees at the theater to take a picture of their group, and I was like, man, I should have gone back. I should have, like, on my phone like done like an on location recording of like reactions to the Mario movie. I could have played them on here for you and I to react to. I thought that would have been such a. I thought about that as I was leaving. I'm like, I can't go back now. It's just going to be weird.
That's funny. No,
So yes,
I
that's
definitely got.
that was my theater experience.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's still fun. Yeah. The amount of previews, I think it was a half an hour of previews, which now that you know how long the movie is, was like almost half the runtime of the movie,
Yeah,
if you think about it. But
yeah.
no, we had a pretty packed theater. I don't know if it was entirely full, but it was pretty full. The training montage with "I Need a Hero," the gag that ends that montage got the biggest laugh in the theater. Everything else, people were mostly respectful as far as like not being like, "Look, there's Spike from Wrecking Crew." Like there was nobody like being. I noticed a thing. I'm clapping. Like no one was really obnoxious about pointing things out or yelling at the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but oh man, I had a moment in my theater. It was probably 5 minutes into the movie, 5-10 minutes into the movie. Um, there was a father and son sitting 2 rows in front of us. I didn't think anything of them at the time. I assumed that was where they were going to be sitting for the movie. The dad was probably mid to late 20s. The kid was probably 6 or 7, and a woman, I'm guessing the mother of 2 other children, come walking down that aisle, and they're like, "Excuse me, you're in our seats." And the dad stands up and just goes, "Ugh," and starts walking out of the aisle, leaving the kid. The kid stands up, looks the woman in the face, calls her the B word, and says, "You're dead," and gestures with his thumb across his throat.
What?
Yeah, I kid you not. And what was even more shocking was how calm the woman was. She was like, "I'm sorry, honey." And the kid walked away. I was like,
So
what
wait,
just happened?
how did this all start again?
The dad and the kid were sitting 2 rows in front. I assumed that was their seat, but apparently they tried to sit center, like it was kind of like center with the screen. And I'm guessing their original seats were more towards the aisle, so it was like more to the side of the
Oh,
screen.
because of the whole assigned seats thing.
Yes, so you had to. I guess I should have prefaced with that. When you buy the tickets, you have to pick which seats you're going to be in to make sure that the theater fills up appropriately. And yeah, the woman with her 2 kids came and they're like, "You're in our seats," and I was shocked that like it was one thing that the dad just got up and walked away, leaving his 6 to 7 year old kid there. The 6 to 7 year old stood up and said that. He called her a B word. I guess I could say it. He called her a bitch, and then said, "You're dead," and gestured with his thumb across his throat, like like the universal like "I'm going to kill you" sign. And then the mom to just go, "I'm sorry, honey." And like she didn't react. Like, did anybody else see this? What am I seeing in the Mario movie right now?
I
So I was like, I know I need to
what a
put this in my
wild.
notes.
I think it's wow. And I feel so bad for that woman who's literally just trying to be like, these are our assigned seats. You're in the spot that I paid for. So, especially, I don't know if, especially, what is it? AMC started doing that. Like, I don't know if they actually are going through with it, but they announced it a while ago that they were going to do that. You pay premiums depending on which seat you're sitting. So like the best seats will cost more in the theater than the lesser ones, which I think is stupid. But like it, if that was implemented, she'd have every right to. I don't even know if you saw this at AMC, mind you.
Yeah,
That's where I
it
saw it. It was
it
at an
was at an
AMC.
AMC, but it wasn't they didn't have the price tiers or anything like that, but it was AMC.
Okay, so it would still, it just, that, wow. And the fact that the dad was just like, oh, like just was more annoyed. I'm like, dude, you're not sitting in the right spot. Like, are you kidding me? That type of
Yeah, and he
stuff
wasn't
just
like, "Come on, son." Like,
that type of stuff just drives me up a wall where it's like I almost I know it's not always right, but I almost admire someone who tries to get away with it, and then when they get caught, they're like, all right, you got me," type of
Yeah,
thing. Especially over something as innocuous as that. But like when they give you a hard time, it's like, no, I'm not going to change my seat that I reserved, that I chose to sit here because you didn't get the seat you wanted. Like, oh my gosh, that's that sorry that I got on like a parental high horse. Like, what I if the kid was comfortable enough with doing, like, flipping off a lady he doesn't know and telling her she's going to die, I can't imagine what his home life is like.
I know. That's what I was like. There were so many layers to that to that moment. My brother saw it too. We were talking about it after the movie. And that's what he was like. That was like an onion of a moment. There were so many layers to what we just saw.
Oh my god. Um okay, we got to get to the spoiler wall. I'll be honest, Dex, I was not expecting us to record as long as we have on just like broad strokes. I was like, "Oh, we'll see how much we have to say." Apparently we have a lot, and we haven't even talked spoilers yet. So, listeners, if you have not listened, or sorry, seen this movie yet, this is your official warning for the spoiler wall. Before we get to it, Dexter, just give some quick shout outs for yourself. Like, where can people find you? So in case people don't come back later on and listen to the spoiler chat portion, which is understandable, where can people find you online?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can find me anywhere, the Twitter, Instagram. You just look up my name, Dexter Morrill, DexterMorrill. Come find me there. Please, I'll be happy to talk with you about the Mario movie or video game preservation or animation, or any of this fun stuff.
All right. So yeah. And I guess just in case it's a new listener, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Still Loading Pod. Also have a Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But I'm not going to go into my full spiel because I'll do my full spiel at the very tail end of the episode. So yeah, so let's do it. Spoiler wall is officially up, everyone. So buckle up your sit downs. Here we go. We're going to talk about this movie in a little bit more depth. The overall plot of this movie, just to kind of give some context, I don't think we can go necessarily beat by beat, though. Dexter, you did take, like I said, very copious notes, and you have a pretty good outline of the entire plot in order. But just based on the fact that we spent an hour doing a non-spoiler section, I don't think we have time for a beat by beat rundown like I do with the still bonding, especially considering those usually go 2.5 to 3 hours, and I really don't want to edit another 3 hour episode in like 3 days, because this is coming out literally, like, we're recording this the Friday before it goes up on Patreon. So this is about as fresh as it gets for still loading. So the overall plot, though, is that Mario and Luigi are living in Brooklyn with their family. They have recently quit Foreman Spike's crew at a construction company, at Wrecking Crew, I guess, and started up their own plumbing business, as we saw with the commercial that they used as the advertisement for the movie, as well as you see this commercial in the movie itself. It kind of shows it on their it has them showing off their commercial on TV to their family and be like, "Huh, isn't this cool? Huh?" And they they uh they accidentally fall. We'll go into a little bit more detail how they get to the Mushroom Kingdom, but for all intents and purposes, they accidentally go into the Mushroom Kingdom and get separated. Luigi gets captured by Bowser. Mario meets Peach, and Bowser's whole big plot is that he's in love with Peach and he wants to marry her, which I absolutely love that twist on it, because even though you've seen it before in like Super Mario Odyssey, the way it's presented here, it was almost unexpected, because you're so used to Bowser just being like, I want to take over the world. But that wasn't really that was almost like a side quest for him. His main quest was trying to marry Peach, and he was hoping to rule the world with her. And so the beginning of the movie, and you saw it in like that first trailer or clip when they first announced the movie, where you see Bowser fighting a bunch of like penguins. He gets the power star from them, and he's using that power star in order to take over the Mushroom Kingdom and also convince Peach to join him. So the whole premise of the movie is Mario has to assist Peach in not only rescuing Luigi, but they have to stop Bowser. And to do that, they they need help from the Kong Kingdom, hence where Donkey and Cranky show up, because they have an army, and the Mushroom Kingdom just has a shitload of toads, which can't fucking fight. So they have to go convince the Kong Kingdom to help them, because which should be an easy sell, because Bowser would attack the Kong Kingdom as well. And in order, they do end up getting that army. It has mixed results on how well it actually does against Bowser's army. Obviously, ultimately, Mario and Luigi win the day, though, when they actually accidentally bring Bowser and his whole like flying castle into Brooklyn, and they have a big final fight in Brooklyn. And obviously, they win, saves the day, and from what you can see at the end, it seems like they set up their plumbing business in the Mushroom Kingdom itself. That is a very quick overview. I'm not leaving it there as like the end all be all for this episode, but just to kind of have a quick run through. So now we can kind of break down some of our favorite elements from each different area. So Dexter, I want to throw it off to you. We're going to start off with the early parts of the movie, like in Brooklyn, going to the Mushroom Kingdom. I would say from Brooklyn to when Mario and Luigi get split up. What are some highlights that you want to shout out with this?
Oh man, right off the bat, when they cut to the commercial, obviously the commercial's adorable. The Mario rap, like you were talking about from the intro to the Super Show, and what they didn't show in the commercial, that the actual commercial that we saw before the movie, is that there's voiceover of Mario and Luigi talking about their business, like, come get the Super Mario Brothers plumbing, but they're really hamming up their Italian accents with like high pitch Italian, like over the top. And it's kind of commenting on, what people might have been expecting from the Mario and Luigi voices, because afterwards they're speaking normal, or with more subdued, just regular Brooklyn accents instead of the full on Italian. And they're like, "Was that too much? You think that was okay?" And they've got the Charles Martinet cameo jump in. I thought it was a perfect. He
I
woohoo jumps
loved
into the
that
air.
cameo I loved that cameo from Martinet as Jumpman. I thought it was such a perfect moment as like a little one-off joke.
And then yeah, exactly. And then the background is full. That Jumpman cameo, he's actually playing a Jumpman arcade machine, which is just like a repurposed Donkey Kong, because then that would have been weird if it was a Donkey Kong machine. Um, it's actually called the Punch Out Pizzeria that they're in during that
Mm-hmm.
moment.
And you
So you
see
see all the
pictures of Punch
pictures
Out fighters in
of,
the background.
yeah, but it's made to look like, celebrities that came to that
Mm-hmm.
pizzeria. It's got like Glass Joe and everything. And then, like we talked about, Form and Spike, telling them that that they're fools for leaving his wrecking crew and starting their own business. They'll never hack it. And that kind of establishes Mario and Luigi's arc, that they are, kind of underdogs, and but they really are passionate about plumbing, which it's just like really adorable that it's just such a, I just really want to be a plumber, like, and everyone, like even their family doesn't believe in them. There's a really harsh scene where the father is like not only telling Mario that he doesn't think he can do it, but telling him that he's dragging Luigi down with him. Like, it's
Yeah. Really
really
brutal.
harsh. Yeah. Um, and which continues with more references in his house. First of all, Charles Martinet also plays Mario's dad.
Oh, does
And
he?
something
I did not know that.
has, yeah, he's got a really great range. And something else I didn't notice till someone shared it on Twitter. I sent it to you as well, that his character design, Mario's dad's character design, is very much looks like Talon from the Zelda games, which people always joked was like a reference to Mario in the Zelda games. So I thought that was, I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was kind of subconscious, but I thought that was a really interesting character design choice. for Mario's dad. But there was all kinds of little Easter eggs, like Mario doesn't like mushrooms when they're having dinner as a family. Um, he's when he's dejected in his room, he's literally playing a Nintendo Entertainment System, and he's
Playing
playing Kid
Kid Icarus.
Icarus.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got a Captain Falcon poster in the background, Ice Climbers poster. He's got a little model of an R-wing on top of his TV. I was geeking out during that entire. I'm supposed to be sad and feeling bad for Mario, but I was like, oh, look, there's the polar bear from Ice Climbers.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you think that, whenever there's a popular movie, with some type of vocation, and it always makes a spike in interest in that vocation, do you think because of how passionate Mario is about plumbing, and I'm semi asking this as a joke, semi as serious, do you think there's going to be a rise in people who want to be plumbers? And in all honesty, trade skills are very much needed, because that's, no one goes to college for a trade skill, and we need people who can do trade skills. That's why plumbers and electricians and everyone's so much money, costs so much, because you need them. I wonder, will this increase people's interest in plumbing? What do you think?
That would be pretty awesome if someone's
Right?
like, finally, I get to be a plumber just like Mario.
Well, because we grew up in an era where the profession of being a plumber was almost always a joke. It was, the
Right.
plumber's crack joke. It was even in like video games up until like, I don't know when the last time I saw like a plumber's crack joke in like a piece of media, like whether it's a video game, movie, or otherwise. But like I can think of the last one I can think of was from Ratchet and Clank in I think 2002. I'm sure there's ones after that, but that's just the last one I can think of that I remember seeing. But we grew up in an era where like people who work trade skills were mocked almost. Maybe not electricians, but definitely plumbers. So I actually like, I mean this sincerely. I know it's kind of like a jokey question to ask and a topic to bring up, but I actually do sincerely kind of hope this makes plumbing at least a little bit more of a desirable profession, and we're not surrounded constantly by the plumber's crack. Like, I'm so happy they never made that joke. I didn't even think about it till just now. I'm so happy they never made that joke in the movie.
Yeah, you're right. And they didn't really like, especially with Illumination being the people who produced it, like they avoided any kind of, very much pun intended, toilet humor. Like they avoided that altogether. Like even though he was a plumber, and I think it's because obviously they're leaning into the fact that the Mushroom Kingdom is just covered in pipes, and that's like Mario's whole shtick is using the pipes to get around and everything. But yeah, I thought there might be something to that, and maybe not even specifically plumbing, but people just having like, what, I can have my own electrician's business. I can, people might be more, or kids might grow up with that as a respectable goal of theirs, which would be totally fine, awesome.
I know it's kind of goofy that we're like taking such a serious stance on a plumber's joke, but or like the idea of a Mario being a plumber. But I'm kind of happy we're talking about it so seriously in a weird sense. But we'll move on with it. I wanted, you mentioned about all the pipes in the Mario Kingdom, and how like, or in the Mushroom Kingdom, excuse me, and about how like they could have easily made a bunch of, like you said, toilet humor jokes. But the thought of those pipes got me thinking. I'm jumping a little ahead. I'm jumping ahead a smidge. I loved almost like their Looney Tunes reference, where Mario goes in, he's following Toad to meet the princess for the first time, and he's going up a pipe, and then it kind of gets this wide shot of all these different pipes, and Mario's going in and out and all around because he can't figure out which pipe takes you where. And it's a really classic joke that you would see out of like a Looney Tunes cartoon, and it didn't necessarily make me laugh out loud, but I was just kind of smiling the whole time while watching it.
Yeah, it's some great physical humor there. The easy joke for the younger crowd, but it's still, like you said, like it keeps that smile on your face. It's just like a good gag to see, because they actually show him inside the pipe a couple of times getting thrown around. So when he pops out the other side, he's like disheveled.
It's, yeah, and especially when he pops out, I think that joke works really well. Um, so like you said, looking disheveled and everything. It's humorous, but I did jump ahead a little bit. Um, After, like you said, all the cool Easter eggs in Mario's room, Mario sees a news report saying there's a sewage, like a sewer. What? Oh fuck! I can't think of the goddamn term. It's a big fucking leak. Okay, there's water everywhere. Brooklyn's drowning. All right.
That's why we need
I
more plumbers.
Yeah, because I don't know what the term is. Mario is determined that him and Luigi can go fix it, and this is kind of, I'm not going to go into like the details of how they kind of happens, but essentially they go into the sewers, they're exploring around trying to find the I guess the water main. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. They're looking for the water main, and they stumble into the Mushroom Kingdom by accident. There's like a warp pipe that sucks them through, and Luigi and Mario do get separated, and they do throw out some Luigi's Mansions references when Luigi kind of shows up on the other side. Am I right?
Yes, definitely. Like right away when he lands in the Dark Lands, I think they call it. The first thing Luigi, like Charlie Day, delivers it perfectly. Mario, like it reminded me very much of wandering around during Luigi's Mansion, and he's just kind of like Mario kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his flashlight. He's shaking his knees, all that stuff. It's great. I think you get some musical cues in there as well.
And I think it's also was when Luigi gets captured. It's the only time you really see Shy Guys, which was a fun reference to Super Mario Brothers 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
of my nephews goes, "Was he wearing a gas mask?" He was referring to a sniffet that was in the bunch of Shy Guys. I was like, "No, that's a sniffet."
you
He's
don't
like,
see a
"What's
lot of
that?"
Shy Guys anymore, right?
Well, they were supposed to be just Mario Brothers 2. They're supposed to be characters from the dream that Mario was having. Spoilers for Mario 2, but
From
they
like a
they've
game
they
that's almost
used
40, over 30 years old now.
Yeah, exactly. Shy Guys, I feel like have shown up more with like Yoshi's Island games.
Yeah. So Mario lands in the Mushroom Kingdom while Luigi falls into the Darklands, and eventually ends up getting captured by the Shy Guys and taken to Bowser. It does have that funny moment where Bowser's questioning him and he plucks his mustache hairs out, which I'll be honest, I don't have like a full blown mustache, but that still was painful to watch. Like just thinking of like how much that would actually hurt to like have your mushroom oh god, no, don't pluck my mushroom off, but have your mustache like plucked out. um but
You got me.
sorry, I got you good with that one.
I was gonna say the dialogue.
Yeah, so Mario does eventually make it to Peach. I
Sorry,
will
I was gonna
say,
say
and
the dialogue in the
mm,
mustache. Gosh, I said it too. The mustache plucking scene was just as funny as the actual sight gag there because while because what Bowser, he reveals his plot of wanting to marry Peach, and it's not just to take over. Which when he's talking to Luigi, he's like, "Will Peach find him attractive?" And Luigi, while he's getting his mustache pulled, is like, "If she has good taste." And I thought that was a hilarious line while being tortured.
it's a fun scene. They move on. Mario does eventually meet Princess Peach, but I wanted to throw it back over to you, Dex, because there's a lot of fun Easter eggs in the scene as Mario's walking through the Mushroom Kingdom. I love specifically the only one I'm going to shout out, and I hope you have. I hope I'm not taking your favorite one. Is the antique store? You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah, that was great.
So the antique store has like a bunch of like little, uh, almost looks like coffee coasters, but they're the size of toads, and it's just little flat versions of the power ups from the original Super Mario Brothers, like Super Mario Bros. 3 and stuff like that. It's really fun.
Yeah, they're all pixelated. It's all the different like stuff you would find in a Toad house, like in Mario 3. Um, and in the background, if you're listening, you can hear one of the shopkeeper telling the customer, if it stops working, just blow in it." And I thought that was a fun little
Mhm.
gag. And you could see a lot of the gags also in the first movie poster that came out, where you see kind of Mario from behind looking at the Mushroom Kingdom. You can see someone buying like a pet fish, but it's like a big, it's like a big cheap inside of a like
Uh-huh.
a baggie of water, and it glares at Mario as he walks by. Like things like that are really great. Um, some of the store signs. I'm trying to remember what some of the shop names are. I can't think of them off the top of my head now, but yeah, there's just some really great. And you get the chance to see like the floating blocks and the question
Hmm.
mark blocks and all the pipes, all the different colored pipes. It's really nice, and the music during that scene is like just this great little medley of all these little musical cues from the different Mario games as he's walking through. Meanwhile, Toad is like telling everyone, "Get out of the way! This guy needs to save his brother before he dies." Like it's really dramatic.
I love Toad in this movie, man. I I like the he's so dramatic, but he's a loyal character. Like he stays by Mario and Peach no matter what. It really is a fun like I sorry, that joke just gets me. He's died.
It was funny to hear a Toad say that. I definitely liked that part, and he's the one that tells Mario right away, like, "Oh, well, you've got to talk to Princess Peach. She's the one that can help us." So he's leading him to the castle, and that's why they're walking through the Mushroom Kingdom and going through all the pipes and everything. And I also put in my notes because I giggled audibly in the theater when they're running through the castle to go see Peach. At one point, taking a sharp turn, Mario has to stop and then change directions, and the actual sound of him like like slowing down was the sound effect of Mario like stopping to turn around in a Mario game. How it makes like the sound when he like stops, it goes the other way. It was that same sound effect, but they kind of spliced
Mm.
it in with like squeaking on the floor. And I was like, that attention to detail makes me so happy.
This whole movie is filled with attention to detail moments. There's just so much. Uh, it the amount of like for me, a lot of the Easter eggs that I noticed were a lot of the musical stings
Yeah.
throughout the stuff. Like you reference it in the notes, like how they kind of do a world 1-1, or sorry, like a 1-2 reference. There's the underground music reference. There's like even later on, like during the credits, I remember the moment that actually got me teary eyed a little bit was the music from Mario Galaxy, just because I love that music so much. It's I don't know. There's so many different moments of just small little touches. I mean, like we mentioned it even in the non-spoiler section, where they have the Super Mario Brothers Super Show reference. Like they didn't have to include. That's an obscure reference. That really is, like, even there are people who've played Mario games who have never heard of that TV show. Same thing with like our Captain N series. Like there's a bunch of people who've never heard of the Captain N show, and the amount of times I have to explain it to people is honestly not disheartening, because I'm not surprised people have. It's more disheartening that I am the one that has been burdened with this. Okay, I shouldn't say burdened. I chose this path. We chose this path, Dexter. Um, I do want to kind of burn through the next little bit because I don't want to turn this into a 2-hour episode. Um, what I want to talk about real quick is just kind of some quick hits. Mario does meet Peach. They discuss how they're going to recruit the Kong army or join forces with the Kong army, and then this is the training montage with the "I Need a Hero" segment that we referenced earlier, which I actually really enjoyed. And you wrote it in the outline. It really emphasizes how Mario, he doesn't give up. He refuses to give up when it's something he knows he needs to do, and he doesn't matter how impossible it may seem, he will continue to fight for it. And it is funny because like Peach does it really well, like destroys it on the first try, and Mario does it like hundreds of times, and he finally almost gets it. And I forget, they make a joke of it about it, like I forget what it is. He makes it
Yeah,
to he's about to touch the flagpole, and like I think a piranha plant eats him or something like that.
yeah. There's a piranha plant hanging from above that reaches down and bites him as he's made the final jump. He's about to reach the flag, but a piranha plant comes down from above and bites him. That got the biggest laugh in my theater.
It was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty. It made me chuckle as well. I thought it was pretty. It just kind of works out that the like sometimes that type of joke doesn't work for me because it's like, haha, I get it. It's the more the like the morbid humor, or, like just the I guess nihilistic humor in a sense
Yeah.
to it. Like it just now. In speaking of nihilistic humor, though, this is a huge jump forward. I can't wait any longer, Dexter, because I feel like this is going to take a long time to discuss. So I'm gonna speed through the story to get to the part I want to discuss in which I reference the nihilistic humor, and then we can go back to touch on anything that you want to touch on, and then we can go into some final thoughts on the movie, like the finale and final thoughts. um Mario does go with Peach to the Donkey Kong Kingdom to or the yeah I guess do they call it the Kong Army to Kong Kingdom or
I think
whatever it
it's the
is.
Kong Kingdom.
He
Yeah.
has he has a battle with Donkey Kong. Basically, if he wins, they can use the Kong Army. If he loses, then I forget what they get. But do you remember what the stakes are for if Mario
Yeah, I
loses?
think it's just that he gets the Kong Army. I think if they lose, he's just kind of like, we'll deal with Bowser if he comes here, but like, sorry.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Mario does defeat Donkey Kong, which surprises everyone. He uses the cat suit to win. Luigi it gets put into prison and is tortured with the mustache scene that we mentioned and put into prison. And this is where we meet the nihilistic humor that I'm talking about. But I want to get a little bit further because we are running short on time. We're getting short on time. They want to like kind of head Bowser off at the pass, so they build their own Mario Kart, go karts. They build their own carts. They drive off of Rainbow Road, which even my wife, not off, they drive they drive on Rainbow Road to get back to the Mushroom Kingdom so they can head Bowser off the pass in an attempt to ambush him. Bowser knows about this because for some reason he has spies everywhere. It's never really explored. That's fine. It's you don't really need it explored. They just have somebody come in and inform him of everything that the crew is doing. So they, as they're on Rainbow Road, they get attacked by Bowser. Mario and DK get knocked off of Rainbow Road into an eel. They have to use the rocket, like one of the like a big rocket to escape the eel, and then Mario and DK use power ups to reach the wedding of Peach and Bowser, which while Mario and DK were in the eel, Bowser pretty much is continuing on with his plan of wanting to marry Peach. They fight. They do fight him, and they Mario is able to make it up to Bowser, and they kind of beat him, but kind of not. And Bowser launches a gigantic bonsai bill. Mario has to kind of get so Bowser doesn't blow everything up. He distracts the bonsai bill so it targets him, and then he flies around. I think he's in his Tanuki suit at that moment,
Yeah.
and he flies it into a warp pipe. But because of that, it literally sucks everything else into the warp pipe, which is how you get Bowser, his like flying castle, Peach and Luigi and DK and everyone into Brooklyn. There's a big final showdown, and they use like you mentioned before, there's a theme throughout the movie of brotherhood and being like literal brothers, like family. And it's a theme that Mario is always the one that saves Luigi, and this time Luigi is able to step in and help Mario save the day. And Mario is ultimately the one that ends up defeating Bowser, but it still goes into that whole theme of brothers saving each other. They shrink Bowser down with a mini mushroom to turn him into a pet turtle, and it's a pretty pretty good joke. You even wrote in the notes, is a good joke payoff because they reference pet turtles earlier in the movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Peach mentions like, now you're going to tell me that where you come from, turtles aren't, terrifying and evil. And he's like, no, in fact, people keep them as pets. And if you come to Brooklyn, I'll give you
Yeah,
one as
okay.
a pet one day.
There you go. That is a great joke payoff. So the reason why I wanted to jump ahead and just kind of skim through the movie so fast is just so we can kind of wrap up with some of our favorite moments or favorite elements. Like there's obviously Bowser singing Peaches. There is there's so much fun stuff, and I really wish we would have more time to do it, but we honestly, knowing you and I, Dexter, we could have gone for 3 hours for this, and I'm kind of putting my foot down and just being like, no, I'm not editing another 3 hour show in 3 days. I refuse to do it, Dexter. I refuse. So my favorite part that I want to shout out here real quick, I know we kind of burned through the most of the movie. Actually, I would say when we went pretty slow paced up until Mario meets Peach, and then Peach in the whole training montage is probably, what would you say, like a little less than halfway through the movie or around halfway through the movie?
Yeah, probably the training montage would be halfway. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. So it would make sense then so I know we kind of burned through the last half like really quickly, like with only like 5 or 6 minutes, if that. So I want to talk about some of our favorite moments out of those stuff that we burned through and things that you really were dying to talk about, Dexter. But I got to talk about the nihilistic Luma. The nihilistic, I talked about it in the previews, and I had a really long build up once again, long-winded build up, and the nihilistic Luma is one of the funniest things I was not expecting to see in this movie, and I'm so happy it's in the movie. It's one of those, you'll see it in like cartoons and other shows and movies where they'll have that one offbeat character that just is obsessed with like being so happy that death is coming. Like they're so happy about the end of the world. They're so happy that that they are going to die or something like that. And life is meaningless. And the moment that you meet this Luma, that's all it says. And one of my favorite moments is like there's a scene where Bowser starts putting all the prisoners into lava, and you think that they're going to die. And as the cages are sinking into lava with like Luigi in them and everyone, I think Cranky Kong and some of the Kongs were in them too, and the Luma is in there too, and it goes like finally sweet release or something like that. Like it's just so
Mercy. Yeah.
exciting. And when Mario inevitably saves them and pulls up the prisoner, the cells that are melting in the lava, that Luigi, like literally half of his cell has melted in the lava, and he's just like holding to the top of which in real life he'd be dead anyway from the heat that close to molten rock. I think he would have died at that point, but neither here nor there. They escape, and the Luma's like, no, it's so upset that it can't die.
The Luma just goes,
I'm doing a
boo.
disservice to how funny it is. Sorry, what?
The Luma goes, boo. And it's like cute little
That's
girl
even better.
voice.
It's not just like it's not like you would just to know. It's almost just like a sad, disappointed fan. Boo.
Yeah, her line delivery is brilliant.
Yeah, lined it 100%. So Dexter, what are some of your favorite moments? I know I skimmed over a whole bunch. Like, there's the whole fight with Donkey Kong. There's Rainbow Road. There's the Mario Kart references. There's, like obviously the big DK and Mario power up scene where they're going through fighting their way up to the wedding. Like, there's so much that we could go into, but just rattle, like what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, a couple of the big ones off the bat, I'll say, is the getting swallowed by the eel after after the race on Rainbow Road. Um, the Rainbow Road breaks, the DK and Mario fall in the water, and they're swallowed by the eel from Mario 64 that was in the pirate ship. Except it's significantly larger. It's like Monstro from Pinocchio. And I like that that eel traumatized me as a kid. Like I hated underwater levels already, and that eel always terrified me. So it was fun to see the eel in this case like actually be as threatening as it felt when I played the game. um, but yeah, and just like Monstro from Pinocchio, they get swallowed up, and they uh, it's it's an attempt at Mario and DK kind of coming together after starting out by fighting. That and they both kind of commiserate about how their fathers don't respect them and what they want to be and what they want to do, and they kind
Mm-hmm.
of once they realize that they have that that similarity, they start to respect each other in a playful rivalry way, which I like that they established that relationship.
I do too.
Because kind of related to the movie. My son is 3.5, and so like all of his toys, he has to ask me if they're good guys or bad guys. And he has a Donkey Kong toy, and he asked me if Donkey Kong was a good guy or a bad guy, and I froze because I didn't know how to answer that because it depends on what
I
game you're
mean,
playing.
technically, you could say the same thing about Mario
Yeah,
because in Donkey Kong Jr., he kidnaps Donkey Kong and forces his son to come rescue him.
that's true. But that's exactly why I froze because I was like, oh, the nuance there. And they were able to pull that off in the movie too, that is showing how that they have that kind of, that rivalry, even though they often are on the same side. They still have that kind of situation with each other where they have that rivalry. The second thing
Yeah.
that the big part that made me well up the most was at the end when they've been sucked into Brooklyn, and Bowser has officially, that's it. If I can't have Peach, nobody can. I'm tearing this place down, going full like scary Bowser mode, and Mario realizes the only way he can stop him is if he gets the star power up, and I think this was on purpose. I like that it gets Bowser realized that's his plan and kind of like swats it away, make sure it gets knocked away before Mario can get to it, and it like bounces away, and it reminds me of when when the star pops out of a block and kind of bounces away, and you have to chase after it. Mario has to chase after the
Oh.
star, and right before he can get to it, Bowser breathes fire, and Mario realizes like I'm not going to get to the star in time. I'm toast, and that's when Luigi comes in and holds up the sewer cover to block the flames, and we have our character arcs here of Luigi being like, I'm going to save you this time, and Mario says like, we're going to do it together like we always do. And so they get the star power up together, and it starts playing the superstar music,
Yep. Yep.
but it's like this gorgeous orchestrated medley. And that's when I was like, I can't, like, I'm gonna sob at a Mario movie surrounded by a bunch of screaming children. Like, and of course, they're using all their super moves, and they even use a couple of moves from the Mario Luigi games where they team up. Um, and they the whole time I'm thinking like they've got to grab Bowser's tail. They've got to grab his tail, and they both grab it and swing him around and throw him like Mario 64 style. And like you said, they give him the mini mushroom and shrink him down as like their final way of defeating him. But yeah, I was so stoked during that. And that song, like, I think they've got it on YouTube now because it's part of the soundtrack. But like, I can't get enough of that
Yeah.
song. It's such a good, and it's such like, it's just that jingle, but the way that they score it is so good.
It's a really good moment. I didn't get emotional there, but I did. I was looking. I looked to my wife, and we both just had this huge smile on our face. Like we really enjoyed that moment a lot. And yeah, it's a really fun way to cap off the movie. It's a really fun way to defeat Bowser, and it feels. I really do think this. It really feels like the game. That scene and the way, like I said, the way they film it, where it's like kind of on the side, like it's a 2D side scroller, but like a cinematic 2D side scroller. It's really cool the way they decided to make the to do the camera work in this like 3D environment. The last thing I wanted to really shout out before we give our final thoughts, Dex, is Jack Black just going ham with his Peaches song. where it's so amusing, where it's so dumb. And that's the best part about it. Like, that's what I love about it. It's not trying to be some insane, like this really dramatic, or like it's not trying to add. Let me put it this way: a lot of movies will try to bring depth to your villain character and make you feel sympathetic towards them. The Mario movie does add depth to Bowser by making him like in love with Peach and kind of doing the whole "if I can't have her, no one can," like a really simple trope that you see in other movies and other like stories. But they don't make him sympathetic. But at the same time, you can't help but like him with his whole like. And this scene kind of epitomizes that, because he's he's talking all about how much he loves Peach and how he wishes he was with her, and then he's singing a whole song about his sadness of not being able to like date Peach, and the chorus just is him going Peaches, 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 or whatever it is, and it's just so stupid, but I mean that as a compliment. Like, it's a self-aware of how silly that moment is, but it works so well in the context of the movie, and it's funny. I like dumb humor, and I think this is a good example of dumb humor.
Yeah, definitely. And as someone who was a big, still a big Tenacious D fan, like when I knew Jack Black was involved, I was like, they've got to have him sing something. And I know some people are afraid of a full on like musical number, so this was kind of a nice in between. It was just kind of Jack Black vamping a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and singing about how much he loves Peach. And it was also like it really lent to the characterization of Bowser for the movie as well, because even though he's evil, he's doing what he thinks he's supposed to be doing. Like, that's where you get that small sense of sympathy, because when he's putting the cages in the lava during the wedding scene, he starts by saying, "And now I'm going to sacrifice these people for you," like in a really genuine way, like, this is what you want, right? Like,
Yeah. Yep.
and that helps really lend to the character of like, this is why I don't hate this character, because he's just dumb. He doesn't know like how evil he is.
He's an evil character who's ignorant to his how evil he actually is. That's a good description for him.
Right.
Let's end this conversation with talking about the mid and post credit. Oh, actually, we kind of touched on the mid credits because it's a reprise of the Peaches song, but the post credit scene, which you brought up a good note about this. So the post credit scene is basically it's a camera shot that's flying through the pipe, like the under the sewage system in Brooklyn, as to where Mario and Luigi got sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom in the first place. The camera follows it down, and you just see this green Yoshi egg, and it cracks, and then you hear the Yoshi noise. And it's kind of a useless post-credit scene, because you already saw, like you mentioned it in your notes, dude, and you hit the nail on the head. There's already a scene earlier in the movie, which was one of the references we didn't mention. It's a herd of Yoshis. So it's like you already know that Yoshi exists in this world. This isn't like some new creature. It just happens to be the Yoshi, I guess, that you're used to in a game. It's not like a herd of Yoshis, it's the Yoshi. And it just doesn't kind of it very much feels like, well, we have to have a post-credit scene, and that's it. That's all. I don't know. That's all I got on it. What are your thoughts though?
No, absolutely, because I really like that scene. It's part of like a when they're traveling to the Kong Kingdom. There's like this little montage of different, like, oh, there's the desert world from Mario Odyssey, and there's this and this, and they're walking through a meadow where there's a herd of Yoshi running on the other side of the river, and that's really like really cute and everything. And then when the post credits like, oh, get ready, Yoshi's gonna be next. It's like, well, I know that Yoshis exist. Like, of course, Yoshi showing up in the next one wouldn't be a huge like, oh my god, it wouldn't be a huge reveal. Um, so part of me really liked that scene of seeing the herd of Yoshis in the background, but since it's part of a travel montage, if they cut that out, I think that the post credits would have been like, oh yeah, Yoshi wasn't there. Oh, now I definitely need to see the sequel. They're gonna have Yoshi, so kind of lose that luster.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. It just it because of the previous Yoshi thing. It just no. You're right. You're right on the money. Uh, like you said, it should have been like a cooler reveal, but it just I don't know. It falls flat. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And overall, for the movie, like I said, I loved it. I thought it was great. It hit everything I wanted it to, and it made me think of, especially kind of like seeing the disparity of review scores from critics versus general audiences. It made me think of a conversation I was having with my wife recently, because every once in a while, when we don't know what to watch, on like a movie night kind of thing where we're just sitting at home, we like to just put on like dumb 90s action movies or like early 2000s action movies. And the conversation we always have when we watch one of those is like, these movies were just fun. They're chock full of plot holes and inconsistencies, but when you're having fun watching a movie and you just have these really great characters that you're invested in, you overlook that kind of thing. But I feel like people have gotten into this mode of plot holes equal bad when they're watching a movie, or like it needs to have all of these elements or it's bad. And I don't think that's the case. There's a reason why we've loved, Back to the Future. Like, you could, Back to the Future, if it came out now, would be picked apart. Like, aside from not even just the time travel, like, well, actually time travel's like this, like the characterization of like, why are Doc Brown and Marty McFly even friends? Like, it doesn't make sense that they would be friends. And all kinds of
Yeah.
other stuff. Like, you could pick apart Back to the Future, but when it came out, looking back, like, it's so beloved. It's a classic for a reason. It's a fun movie. Stop trying to pick it apart. Stop asking these questions. Just watch it. Just enjoy it. And I don't mean to turn your brain off. I mean, enjoy the art of it. Enjoy the message of it. Enjoy the emotion of it. You don't have to know the nuance and why the magic works this way, or how did this person get from here to there so fast. Like, don't worry about it. If as long as it doesn't distract you, like, as long as it doesn't take away from the message and the themes, it's not a big deal. And that's what I kind of wanted to say about Mario, is there's going to be people that nitpick it, and I just want people to enjoy it. That being said, if you didn't like it, I'm not going to like taunt you on social media. You're free to not like it. But I just really liked it. And I think that a lot of people, would enjoy it if they, enjoy the characters and just take in the fun colors and expression and everything. So that was kind of my soapbox. I'll step down now.
Well, first off, I set you up for a perfect transition into these outros, because I said that the post credit scene falls a little flat, and I was waiting for you to be like, well, you know what doesn't fall flat? This movie. And you let me down, Dex. No, but no, I'm with you on what you're saying about the kind of like the whole idea of like, movies can just be fun. They don't need to be you don't need to have everything make sense all the time. As long as you care about the characters, that's really that all that needs to happen. And I think you're right. Not every movie needs to have a comment on needs to comment on some aspect of the human condition.
Right.
Like, Pixar movies are great, but one of the reasons, we were talking about it a bit off mic. One of the reasons I think sometimes they can not fall flat, but they can fall a little stale, is because every movie has to have some emotional gut punch to it. They are always looking for some emotional gut punch, and whether it works or doesn't, like, more often or not, I think it works. But I do think, in a sense, like, everyone's now looking, well, kids movies need to have some emotional moment that you can connect to, and you know what? No, they don't. Like, some of your, like, I love. Why do you think like the John Wick movies are so popular. And I adore the John Wick movies. So this is not an insult to them, but they're not incredibly like strong on story. The first movie, I mean, actually, I kind of take that back. There's a deep emotional reason for John Wick going on a killing
Yeah.
rampage in the first movie, but even so, it is like you said, to be nitpicky with it. And slight spoilers for the first 5 minutes of John Wick. John Wick goes on a killing rampage in the first movie because his dog gets murdered. Now, there's an emotional reason. His dog was given to him by the love of his life wife, who had recently deceased, and she kind of arranged for it before she passed for him to get a dog so that way he could have a companion. And so like there is this moment for it, but it's like it is a little silly when you kind of take it out of that context that he does all of this because of a dog. And they even make fun of it in the movie to an extent. Like they play it off as a little joke. And the reason I bring all that up is just that their movies don't need to always make sense. They can just be fun and silly, and they can have some like really like good storylines that it doesn't have to necessarily be a comedy like this. But you reference Back to the Future. Back to the Future is good because the characters are interesting, the storyline is interesting, and it's fun. Like it's the same thing. One of my favorite Bond movies is Skyfall. There's a lot of plot holes in Skyfall, but you don't notice it because you're having too much fun. Like you don't need to dissect. I mean, unless I guess being on a podcast, you dissect everything. So I guess it's a little hypocritical. But I think there's a as I do on the Still Bonding series and it's on other stuff. You can dissect something, talk about its flaws, but also still mention like it's a fun time. And it's not always the case in some of the Bond movies because there is a lot of problematic elements in some of those older films. So I'm not really necessarily talking about those, but like when I say problems, I mean like, plot hole issues or just, poor direction, poor acting choices, poor lighting or something like that. Like you can look past some of these objective flaws and just find reasons to enjoy a movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time? Three Ninjas. Those movies are atrocious. They are train wrecks of cinema, and I love all of them because they are just fun, stupid movies to watch. So to bring it back to Mario, I'm with you, Dexter. It is a fun, I won't quite say stupid, and you didn't either. I'm not going to put that word in your mouth, but it is a fun, silly movie to watch. If you're a fan of Mario, you will love it even more. If you're not a fan of Mario, I will say this as a criticism. I don't think it will be quite as enjoyable. Let me put it this way. I don't know if you'll actually even enjoy it at all. If you're not a fan of Mario, you might. It's still fun, but it might not still give you that same emotional connection that people who grew up with Mario get when they see some of the references with it. So if you like Mario, and I actually meant to highlight it at the top of the episode, I can't believe I forgot to shout it out. Like, how dare Nintendo not release this during Mario Month for my show? So now I have to do another episode outside of Mario Month on this. But I'm still so grateful I got to see this movie. I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I really hope this encourages Nintendo to go through with some of their plans of other, like either TV or movie adaptations of some of their properties. I would love to see Nintendo do that. But that is a discussion for another day. That is a discussion to have for another episode on like where could Nintendo go with some of their other movie and TV adaptations if they decide to do more on their properties. But we're going to wrap it up here with what we've spoken about. So Dexter, thank you once again for joining me, my friend. It's been awesome having you on for something that's not a Captain N episode, though. Listeners, you will be hearing another Captain N episode in just a few weeks. So Dexter, one more time, where can the good people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. Just search my name, Dexter Morrill, DexterMorrill. Tell me how much you did or didn't love the Mario movie, and I will welcome either opinion. I will welcome it, and I will discuss it with you at length. I could talk about this movie all the time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking about it with you.
And don't worry, listeners, he will, of course, shit talk you to me after you talk to him. So it's going to be a good time. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not supposed to tell them that part.
But Yeah, no, thank you so much again for coming on, Dex. This was a lot of fun. And I said it before, like we did the spoiler wall. I was amazed we got like an hour out of the non-spoiler section or about that. I don't know what it's going to be after edits, but I'm excited to see, I'm excited for this episode to come out. I think it's a really good one. So thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Still Loading. As I said before the spoiler wall, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Still Loading Pod on all of them. You can support the show by going to either giving it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts / whichever podcasting app you use, because that makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I like feeling warm and fuzzy. You can also support the show by going to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get the episodes like this one a few days earlier at a better bit rate. And for $4 a month, you get some bonus episodes plus everything at the $1 tier. And for $5 a month, you get Still Bonding, which is, I referenced a bunch during this episode, but it's that Patreon exclusive James Bond podcast that I do. And you can, at the $5 level, you get that plus everything from the previous 2 tiers. So yeah, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But of course, the most important shout out is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of kids receiving inpatient care at hospitals. So if you want to support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that is all the time I have for you today. That is all we have for the Super Mario Brothers movie. Thank you all so much for listening. Dexter, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's always a blast. And I do want to say that I will think of all of the listeners the next time I play video games as well.
This isn't Captain N, Dexter. We can't give that shout out.
I had to say it.
You had to say it, but thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening. We will think of you the next time we play video games, and I will see you all next time.